Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies, too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country. There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to dig in.
Well, today we're looking at something, well, it's a bit of a wild one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's the 2016 Comedy Central roast of Rob Lowe.
Oh, spicy.
It is, especially when you throw Ann Coulter into the mix and her, shall we say, less than stellar performance.
Oh, yeah. That was rough. I remember that.
It was, and there's actually a lot more to the story than just a bad set. We found this exclusive article from the Daily Beast, and it turns out Coulter actually blamed her bombing on the jokes she was given.
Interesting. So she felt the material was weak.
Super weak. She called them terrible, actually used a much stronger word in the article.
Let me guess. Started with an S.
You know it. But here's where things get really interesting. She initially thought the jokes were written by a team of Comedy Central writers.
Right. Typical roast procedure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But guess who actually took credit for those jokes later on?
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
None other than Tony Hinchcliffe.
No way. The same guy who's been in hot water over those jokes at the Trump rally.
One and the same. Apparently, he thought those roast jokes were great and that Coulter would have killed if she'd used them.
Wow, talk about a difference of opinion. I mean, Coulter called him the worst human being she'd ever worked with after that roast.
Yeah, but here's another twist. Coulter actually admitted to finding some of his recent online jokes pretty funny.
Hold on, so she hates him but likes his jokes. This is getting complicated.
Right. It seems like she's separating her personal feelings from her judgment of his comedic talent, which I gotta say is kind of interesting in itself.
For sure, shows a level of, I don't know, maybe objectivity. Or at least compartmentalization.
Definitely. And remember, this is the same guy who called her out for supposedly not understanding the roast format at all.
Adding fuel to the fire, huh? So we've got conflicting opinions on the jokes themselves, accusations about not getting the roast, and all this wrapped up in the current political climate. Man, this is a mess.
It is, but a fascinating mess, right? And to give you an idea of just how different their comedic styles were, the article actually shares one of the jokes Coulter wrote for herself.
Oh, this, I got it here. Hit me with it.
Okay, so she's going after roast master Jeff Ross, and she asks, why is Jeff Ross at every roast? Then her punchline is, he thinks he deserves it, everybody else just goes along with it. He's like Hillary Clinton.
Oof. Yeah, that's not great. Not exactly roast material.
Not even close. It just feels mean, not clever or funny, which is kind of the whole point of a roast.
Totally. Roasts are about finding that sweet spot between being cutting and witty.
Hmm.
You got to make fun of the person, sure, but you got to do it with some style.
Exactly. It makes you wonder if Coulter maybe went in with the wrong mindset. Maybe she didn't fully grasp what a roast is all about.
Or maybe she did and just completely missed the mark.
Huh.
Either way, it's clear she and Hinchcliffe were on totally different comedic wavelengths.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, maybe there's more to this than just bad jokes. Maybe it was a clash of personalities, comedic styles, who knows?
It's definitely a story with layers, that's for sure. And to think this all ties back to the current controversy surrounding Hinchcliffe and those jokes at the Trump rally. It's like everything's connected.
It really is. And it makes you think about how much the comedy landscape has changed, especially when you throw politics into the mix.
No doubt about it. Comedy's become a minefield these days. One wrong step and boom, you're canceled.
Yeah, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that? How do you stay true to your voice as a comedian while also being mindful of the potential backlash? I mean, is there even a way to do both?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And one we're going to explore as we dig deeper into this story. We'll unpack Coulter's take on the Hinchcliffe situation, how she sees this whole thing playing out politically, and whether she thinks the left is overreacting. It's going to get interesting.
Can't wait. But first, a quick break. We'll be back in a flash to continue our deep dive into this wild world of comedy, politics, and roasted reputations.
It's like every joke now is under a microscope.
Right. And it's not just about being funny anymore. It's about, like, Sending the right message, fitting into a certain tribe.
Yeah, it's almost like comedy's become this battleground for ideology.
Exactly. And that makes it tough to, like, actually talk about what's funny or not. Because everything's so loaded.
Totally. And it's easy to get sucked into this, like, outrage cycle where we're always looking for the next offensive thing.
And it's exhausting. I mean, can't we just laugh anymore?
Maybe that's the point, right? Maybe we need to, like, rethink what we find funny. Why do certain jokes land for us? What does that say about us? It's a big question.
It is. It's deep. But going back to the roast, I remember watching it and thinking Coulter was almost trying to be anti-roast.
Interesting. Like, she didn't want to play by the rules.
Yeah, like she was trying to subvert the whole thing, which, knowing Coulter, isn't that surprising.
True. But Hinchcliffe actually said she just didn't get the format at all. He thought that's why she bombed so hard.
Which adds a whole other layer, right? Was it a deliberate choice, or did she genuinely misunderstand what a roast is supposed to be?
And then you've got the power dynamics, too. You've got these established figures like Coulter, and then you've got up-and-coming comedians like Hinchcliffe trying to make their mark.
It's that classic, like, old guard versus new generation thing.
Yeah.
And in comedy, pushing boundaries is often how you break through.
Right. But those risks can have huge consequences, especially now with cancel culture and all that. One bad joke can really derail a career.
Yeah, social media is a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
It gives comedians this massive platform, but it also means every joke is under a microscope.
Exactly. So how do you navigate that as a comedian? Do you play it safe to avoid controversy, or do you stay true to your voice, even if it means alienating some people?
It's a tough balance, and I feel like we're seeing more and more comedians trying to be, I don't know, more thoughtful, maybe. It's not just about getting a laugh anymore. It's about the message, the impact.
Yeah, there's a shift happening for sure. But that doesn't mean edgy humor is gone. It's more about being, like, intentional with it, pushing boundaries without being needlessly hurtful.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
And that actually applies to more than just comedy, you know? This whole Coulter Hinchcliffe thing, it makes you think about how we have tough conversations in general.
Oh, absolutely. How do we challenge each other without being, like, hateful or personal? How do we make space for different opinions, even when they make us uncomfortable? Big questions.
Huge. But it feels like comedy, especially political comedy, is right at the heart of that struggle.
It's like comedy's become this weird way to show you belong, you know? Like, what side you're on.
Yeah, like it's not even about whether something's funny anymore. It's about whether it fits your, like, your political identity.
Exactly. So then it's like, how can you even have a real conversation about humor? Everything's so politically charged.
Right. Like you're always worried about saying the wrong thing, offending someone.
It's exhausting, honestly. It's like this constant cycle of outrage, looking for the next offensive joke to get mad about.
Maybe it's time we all, like, take a breath, rethink our relationship with humor, you know?
I think so. Like, why do we laugh at the things we do? What does that say about us? And what does our laughter do to other people?
Deep stuff.
Yeah.
But this whole Coulter-Hinchcliffe situation, it really brings those questions to the surface.
Oh, for sure. You've got these two figures known for pushing buttons, trying to navigate this world of comedy, and it blows up in their faces.
It's like a perfect example of how messy this whole thing is, right? Like humor, politics, free speech, it all gets tangled up.
And there's no easy answer. I mean, where do you draw the line? What's off limits? It's all so subjective.
Exactly. And it makes this whole deep dive even more interesting, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about dissecting some bad jokes, it's about these bigger questions.
It makes you think, like, can we even laugh together anymore? Or is it always going to be this divided, this us versus them?
Yeah, and if we can't laugh together, then what? I mean, that's kind of scary when you think about it.
I know, right? But maybe, just maybe, talking about it is a start, you know? Like, having these conversations even when they're tough.
I hope so. Because if we can't even talk about it, then we're really in trouble.
Well said. We got to keep the conversation going, even if it's messy, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. Well, folks, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. We've covered a lot of ground, from bad jokes to political battles to the future of comedy itself.
And we've asked a lot of questions, but haven't necessarily answered them all.
But that's the point, isn't it? To get you thinking, to spark a conversation.
And to maybe, hopefully, find a way to laugh together again, even amidst all the chaos.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, what did you think of those jokes Coulter tossed aside? Was Hinchcliffe right to claim them as his own? Where do you draw the line in comedy? We want to hear from you. Keep the conversation going in the comments. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep laughing.
And remember, laugh responsibly.